Second. Hey guys, we are back with another thing for you during this kind of unprecedented time for you guys to be able to kind of learn and hopefully take some things out of it. Today we're going to kind of do a pitching Q&A, I guess, if you will, and I'm pretty excited about the guys we have on here today. I'll kind of run through them a little bit, and we'll kind of go through what they do as a pitcher, what they've kind of learned throughout their career, and give you a little insight on how they go about their business. And the first guy that we have is Mikey Edwards. Mikey, he's currently a junior at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, which is a Division I program in the Horizon League. Mikey is a weekend starter, so he'll pitch, in all their conference games, everything like that. One of our favorite pitchers, just because he's just a smart pitcher. He doesn't have to control you by throwing too hard, but he always knows what he's doing as a pitcher and what he wants to do. So excited to have him here. The other guy that we have is Brent Hedrick. You guys may have saw Brent's interview the other day, but Brent is our first draft pick we've had in the program. He's a 6'6" lefty, I think it is, and got drafted in the 9th round last year and is currently in the Minnesota Twins organization. And in his off time, he enjoys growing his mustache out, which I'm sure you guys can see on there a little bit. The other guy we have is Bel-Air, who was giving some facial hair tips to Brent before we got on here. But Cole does some instruction for us here at Rhino. He actually, out of high school, he went to U of I, pitched there for a little bit, transferred out to Tennessee Wesleyan, and won a national championship his senior year, I believe it was, and was actually the winning pitcher in that game. And he is currently pitching for the Windy City Thunderbolts. And then you guys also obviously know Greg Blazing, president of Rhino Baseball, and we got Dave MacDonald, who is our director of pitching. So we got a great amount of knowledge here between all these guys, and some guys obviously are still in college pitching, some guys are out of it in the pro leagues, and you got guys who have obviously been through kind of all with Coach MacDonald. So guys, welcome and thanks for being here on this.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime.
So let's walk through kind of, our warm-up drills. A lot of guys, especially youth guys, they don't go through much. They play catch, they start pitching off a mound, and then they go into a game. Can you guys kind of walk through kind of what your pregame routine is and how you kind of deal with all those things leading up into a game? So let's start with Mikey.
So usually I just start with like a dynamic warm up, just get like a full body stretch in, get the blood pumping a bit. And then for me, I kind of follow the Driveline routine. So, if it's a pregame, I get my dynamic routine in, I get all my, band stretching, and then I go into shoulder tube, wrist weights, and then I start with the Driveline balls, and I'll throw all of them for a couple sets. And then once my weighted balls are done, that's when I'll play catch, and I'll extend it out to, 180 feet, depending on the day. And then I go right into, warming up on the mound, getting ready for a game.
So real quick, and I'll ask each one of you guys this, how long does it take you, or how long do you give yourself before first pitch to kind of get ready to go? Is it half an hour, hour and a half? What is it?
For me, I try and I'll say an hour. I'll start my dynamic warm up, but really to get like ready to throw, it's 45 minutes.
Okay. And the reason I ask is I being a coach now for close to a decade and coaching you guys and some of you guys personally, I know if Mikey's been on my teams in the past. Every pitcher is so much different that I've seen. Every pitcher kind of takes their own routine and runs with it. And that's why I want to ask these questions so our players can get kind of a sense of what you guys each do. So Brent, what about you? Kind of walk us through your pregame routine.
Yeah, so about 45 minutes before the game, I'd say I'm start cleating up, and then I go out, take a nice little jog down the outfield fence, and then I go through about a 10-minute rollout phase. So I roll up my back, my legs, take a lacrosse ball to the pec, your shoulder, your lat, just trying to get everything loosened up, especially, living in Illinois for all this time, the cold weather is a big deal too. You want to make sure you're loose, throwing in cold weather, much less warm weather too. But yeah, I do that, usually roll out, feel pretty good there. Then go through an arm stretch, just kind of like upper body swing, arm swings, all that kind of stuff. And then go straight to J-bands, run through the circuit there. And then, kind of work my way out slowly. Don't try to kill it too early when you're throwing, but just, work out to a comfortable distance for you. where you feel like you're good, and then work back in, and then go through your pregame pen.
Okay, cool. What about you, Cole? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, usually mine starts just because I like to take my time, make sure I'm not rushing too much. So mine usually starts probably about like hour 15 before the game, hour 15 to hour and a half, depending on how I feel that day. Because some days you're not going to feel too great, but yeah, usually roll out everything with a foam roller, and then roll out my upper body with a cross ball. Do a dynamic warm up. Do the same thing like Mike. Do all the driveline balls, but yeah, before then do the J bands, shoulder tube, the wrist weights, and then I go through all the driveline balls. And then I'm a guy that really likes to stretch it out before I start. So I'll go as far as I can, usually before my starts. That's typically what I do.
So you're talking more long toss before you enjoy, and usually start on the foul line and probably throw all the way down to center field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, usually.
Dave, has anything changed from when you were pitching at Illinois State to now, as you got a little more gray hair in that beard?
Yeah, a lot of things have changed. Like that beard. But yeah, a lot of things have changed. When we were at Illinois State, we were using tennis cans filled with sand to do our job work. A lot of our shoulder stuff, and didn't have a lot of the resistant bands or the weighted balls. I always say, we used to use a tennis ball filled with pennies, to start throwing back in the day. But yeah, a lot of things have changed. But when I was the pitching coach at the high school, our pitchers usually warmed up an hour before the game. Usually when you saw the other team come off the bus, if you're at home, obviously if you're on the road, you got less time to do that, so you got to do kind of an accelerated version of it. But we took about an hour, did a pull back and forth just to get the blood flowing, and then a couple sprints here or there, and then some bands and a couple mechanical stuff with the towels just to kind of get us going, and then get into our throwing progression with the catcher, slowly moving out to long toss, and then getting yourself onto the mound.
So as director of pitching for Rhino baseball, and as a guy that obviously coached at the high school level for a number of years, what do you think is the most important thing that players should be doing before a game? Obviously playing catch and things like that are obviously vital, but other than that, are there any really important things that you would like guys to do? And it's a lot harder, I think, on the tournament side for youth guys and high school guys sometimes, because maybe you're playing back-to-back, right? Or maybe you don't know when you're actually playing next, and you finish up game, you got to rush across the yard, or you got to rush to another stadium to go play. So I think it's a lot harder on the travel side sometimes. But is there certain things that you would like to see a lot of our players do if they had to kind of pick one or two for sure things to do before a game?
The first thing is to just take your time. I think a lot of kids just today just try and rush through everything, and then they think they're loose, but then all of a sudden they start playing catch and they're not. It takes longer for them to throw on the mound. But I would, especially on the tournament side, when it comes to travel ball, you kind of know, hopefully as a coach, who's going to start that next game. So if it's kind of a fast pace, as long as they're not playing in the field, especially at the high school level, they can start to get loose and get warmed up, kind of on their own before that next game, especially if they're a PO. They got plenty of time if they're starting that next game to, between games, get loose and everything. But, I think the biggest thing is just making sure that arms loose and ready to go. You don't want to step onto the mound that first inning and, have any doubt that you're not ready to go and you're tight and you're not going to give your best effort for your team.
Yeah. So let's me and Cole have kind of discussed this briefly, probably over the last couple of months, about more of the cool down period, right, after you pitch, and what guys should be doing in terms of having their arm recuperate from after throwing. And you see a lot of guys, what they'll do is they'll go throw, and whether it's a pen or do a recruiting video or whatever the case, they'll throw and they say bye, and that's it. They're out of there. There's no care after pitching, and having you guys on here, I want you guys to kind of explain what you guys go through kind of immediately after you pitch in a session, and how you kind of take care of your arm and what you do. So why don't we start with Mikey again? Kind of walk through how you take care of your arm after you throw in a game.
Yeah. So, depending, how I feel, if I feel pretty well after I'm done throwing, then every day I'll usually go to the pen. We'll have our, the trampoline with the weighted balls, shoulder tube, stuff like that. So I'll do band pull aparts. I'll do 3 sets of everything. So I'll do that, band pull aparts. I'll do the black and green ball with the tramp. And then I'll do like shoulder carries with the wrist weights. And then I do that 3 sets each. And then, stretch, just stretch everything out. And then if I'm like hurting a little bit, then I'll, see the trainer and do some floss or something like that. So not a whole lot for me, but.
Okay. What about Brent? How about you after a day of throwing?
Yeah, for me, I'm not much into like the weighted ball type thing. I'm always been just kind of standard, just I used to ice. Ice was my big thing before, but that's kind of in a way been phased out, and it's kind of shown that there's other things that are more beneficial. So I've kind of took a different route now to where we kind of get assessed early in the season, like what you kind of lack, like what part of mobility in your shoulder and stuff. So afterwards now I work a lot on Scat Mobility, because I mean the biggest thing is you don't want to be sore the next day. That's your goal, is just to try to be less sore than you were the day before. So you're not really trying to strengthen as much afterwards, as you're just trying to get more mobility back and be ready for the next day. So I attack a little bit of strengthening your shoulder, but more so mobility and blood flow, and just try to get everything moving along so you don't wake up the next day and can't move your arm because it's sore. So that's biggest for me. So we'll do, take 3-pound weights, and it seems light, but you do enough with it, and your shoulder's feeling pretty good afterwards. And then little band resistance things, and just things that'll make you feel good. I mean, you're different than the guy standing next to you, so that's the biggest thing to remember, is that you're going to have a different plan than they are, but just find little things that work for you and kind of create your own little program.
I'm glad you brought up the mobility part, and Greg can maybe talk about this a little bit too. We've had a lot of conversations about going into next year with Cam Galgano coming in and doing a little more speed, strength, and agility for us, is actually working on that mobility side, where we actually test players right at the beginning of the year and see what they for sure need to work on a little bit more, and have a little bit more of a plan for them to go throughout the year, that things that they can work on to increase whatever mobility it is, whether it's in the arm or the legs or whatever it is. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit more, Greg, and kind of possibly what the plan is for guys? And I think it directly relates to pitchers and how they perform too.
Sure. Yeah, no, I don't know anything about pitching, so let me clarify that. I was told to stop pitching at like age 11. So, but whether you're a hitter, you're a pitcher, or, fielding, there's certain things that when you look at a player, you go, man, I feel like we've been working on this for forever with this guy, and he just can't get it. And, sometimes players just can't get it, but most of the time it's a mobility issue. You talk about hip hinge, you talk about certain things as a hitter and they can't do it. Ankle flexibility, things like that. That's why we'll start testing our players, next year and trying to find out, hey, what can this guy not do? And is his body just locked up in a certain area? Because you really have to train every single player differently. I think there's some core components that everyone should do, but there's also some things that, each player is going to be different, so, and one other thing too, Brent, on the icing side, I know, earlier you'd mentioned that you used to ice, and really that methodology is kind of slowly going away. I'm not a doctor by any means, and if there's still some benefit to icing, there might be, but it seems like healing happens when blood flow resumes.
Yep.
And so I know we had spent some time in our youth classrooms to just this year talk about how, hey, we really want the players to kind of challenge that thought process of icing. We asked them all, hey, what does mom and dad tell you to do after you get done throwing or after game? And almost every single one of them just said, oh, they just tell me to ice. And there was no running, there was no J bands, there was no shoulder work. And it was just, I just ice every day. And so that all that stuff restricts blood flow. And when you do that, you decrease healing, so we're on board with that. And to me, that's really interesting to hear a professional player say that he's changed his thought process. Because then it shows our little guys that we're just not, we're not making things up as we go along here. But have you personally found I guess a quicker recovery time when you've cut icing out and gone more active?
Yeah, because I feel